All right, awesome. We are here for managing conflict, honoring your parents. Okay, so this is what we're here for. My name is Paul Behnke. I'm one of the pastors at Alliance Church. I work in student ministries there. I've been there for about 3 years, and I want to give a little bit of an intro to me. All right, so this is pictures. Okay, this is so how many of y'all are involved in a youth ministry somewhere? At a church somewhere. All right, sweet. So if you're involved in youth ministry somewhere, this was my senior year of high school ministry, right? This is me right here, right? I was a stud, I guess. And then this is my wife, our senior year of high school. So I grew up in a Christian home, grew up in a student ministry. Student ministry was a huge foundational part of my life and my family's life and things. And so really grew through our student ministry actually went to Alliance Church when I was in high school. And this was our group. My family, the other picture is my family now. And so that's me in the middle, obviously. My wife, Nicole, she goes by Nikki. And then I've got 3 kids. Ava is the oldest. She's on your left. She is in 3rd grade. And then Abby and Ethan are twins. They are 8 and they are in 2nd grade. So it's a little bit about my family. And before I get started with other things, I do want to mention something else. I want to introduce you to this family. This family is the gal right here is my cousin. And before I continue on and want to move forward, last Sunday, this family was tragedy struck this family. The dad and the son were in a car accident on the way home from church, and the dad passed away. The son is alive, but faith-filled family. And when I think about a dad, a man of God, who lived with no regrets, it was Grant. This is Grant, who's with Jesus now, and this is Rachel and their kids who now are without a dad, without a husband, and so they're grieving now, but they are honestly, faith is what's holding this family together. It's what's always held this family together. But I want to say that one because I didn't drive down to Iowa to be with them this weekend, but because Grant, if I were to think through who is Grant, what was Grant like? He was a man with no regrets. He was a man that said, I want to give, I want to serve. He was a leader in their church. He was a leader in the men's ministry in their church. And so to be here is kind of a tribute to him. So I want to pray for this family and then move on. So let me pray quick. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for today, for what you are going to do, for what you have done, for the scripture that's been taught, the next steps that have been given. So God, I pray, Lord, we'd all leave here changed today through whatever session it is, God, that you lead us through. And so, God, I pray that your Spirit would lead us. God, I pray, Lord, for the Stuckoff family. I pray for Rachel and her kids. And I thank you, Lord, for Grant and the life that you had given him. And so, God, I pray, Lord, that you would provide everything that they need going forward. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. I've been a youth pastor for coming up on 13 years. 10 years of those were in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. The last 3 years here in Appleton, Wisconsin. And the last 13 years, I've sat across the table from many parents and many students, and then many students and parents together, and talking through conflict. Right, talking through conflict. My kid's doing this. My dad's doing this. Like all of this stuff. And one of the most common things that I hear, one of the most common things that I've heard in these meetings is we just have to get through 4 more years. We just have to survive the next 4 years, and then we'll be fine. We can survive the next 4 years in high school. We can survive the next 6 years in middle school and high school. We'll be fine. We just got to survive it, right? And that's a lot of times the student's perspective. Man, once I graduate, once I turn 18, I graduate, everything's going to be better. Everything's going to be fine, everything's going to be better, and I just can't wait till then. We just got to not kill each other before then, right? That's the goal, right? Survive, right? And a lot of times it can be a parent's perspective, too, to say, my goodness, my kid, I don't know. I don't know if I can continue to do this, but if we can survive it, I got 3 more years, so we can survive the next 3 years, I think we'll be good, right? And that's just, it really is a flawed perspective, right? It's a flawed perspective to think that that if you survive these teen years with parent and student conflict, if you survive that, everything from then on will be okay. And the truth of it is, if you are only barely surviving over these teen years as parents and students, it's beyond that, it's not necessarily going to get better, right? Yeah, you're going to have freedoms and you're going to have different things, but it's not better. And so the perspective that I want to give today is how do we thrive, right? How do we do more than just survive? How do we thrive in student ministries? So or survive in this season. So you can not just survive, you can thrive the next 4 to 6 years through student ministry. So what I want to do now is I want to talk through a biblical perspective. What I'm going to do today is talk through a biblical perspective about parenting and being parented and conflict resolution. But before we do that, I want to go through a time of just brainstorming. Okay, so we're going to brainstorm questions. What are the biggest conflicts that parents and students have? All right, so and if you don't have any, then we can just pray and close. Like, if there's no conflicts, there's nothing that comes up, then we don't even need to be here. So, what do you guys got? What is just biggest conflicts? Yep. Grades, okay. What else? Video games. And specifically what in video games? Is it time you spend, the type of video games? What is it? What's the... So you've got video games. You've got time. You've got type, right? What else?
Electronics in general.
So electronics. All right. What else? What else?
Missing assignments.
Okay, so you got grades again, right?
Vehicle.
Okay, so driving, car, vehicle. What else? The back. Siblings, yes. Yeah, some people are just like, if I didn't have a sibling, my parents and I wouldn't fight. Chores, yeah, absolutely. What else? All right, so friendships. Friendships, is that time that you're with friends, who your friends are? What do you think? So time, who they are, right? Are you hanging out with the right friends, different friends? Time type of friendships. What else?
Girlfriends.
Okay, so girls.
Bedtimes.
What is it? Bedtimes or curfew?
That's a pain.
We stay. What else? So homework, school. So this is a common one, right? Grades, school. Right? Sleeping. How much sleep you get? Or don't get, or should get. You'll go with bed, right? What else?
Extracurriculars.
Okay. Extracurriculars. If you struggle because I spelled something like it shouldn't be, I don't really care. So you're gonna have to get over it. Jobs, right? Okay. Hey, you need to get a job. Why you not get a job? You have a job. How you doing all that stuff? College, okay.
There's an alphabet soup, spells get a job.
So we could put job and then you can put money, right? And you have conflict about money. Anything else? What was that? Participation like what? Like
Anything. Getting up the money.
okay, so like participation. This could go with chores. This could go with being present, being at dinner. Putting your phone away to do all the electronics. So participation can be kind of an all-encompassing. Like, are you a part of this family? Or are you not a part of this family? How many people have heard or said the statement? If you're going to be a part of this family, you must. Right? I mean, we've been there, right? So that's part of participating in the family, right? Hygiene, okay. Take a shower already. All right. So then chores, right? What else? Safety, right? Yeah, it's good. Don't jump off the roof. Next. Is that how you hurt your arm? Okay. Anything else? Injuries. What else? Yeah.
Future
So future, right? Anything else? All right, so this will give us a little bit of perspective on, we're going to come back to this list. This is a list of things that we have conflict over, parents, students have conflict over. So I want to talk through a biblical perspective on parent-student conflict resolution. And I'm going to address one verse that specifically addresses students, the student side of things. And I want to address one verse that specifically addresses the parenting side of things. So the first, guess which verse I'm going to use for students. Guess. Just guess. Just guess what verse I'm going to throw up on the screen.
Honor thy father and mother.
Yes, got it. Exodus 20:12 says, honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long. And we could just say, just period, so that you may live long. So you may live. So you may survive. You may live, right? So, honor your father and mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Exodus 20, verse 12. This is so predictable, right? You probably could have thought, like, oh, this is on conflict. Yeah, we're probably going to use this verse. And we do, because this is a huge deal. So here's the thing. The context of this verse is the people of Israel had just been released from slavery, right? They've been in slavery in Egypt for 400 years, okay? And so they come into the wilderness on the way to the promised land. And Moses goes up to the mountain and he gets what? 10 Commandments, right? 10 Commandments, he comes down with the 10 Commandments. This is one of the 10 Commandments. This is one of the 5 commandments that God specifically addresses relationships with others, right? 5 of those 10 Commandments address relationship with God, and 5 of those address relationship with others. Why? Well, if you think about it, there's a reality that this whole nation, this whole people group came out of Egypt, and now they're wandering in the wilderness, and they have no societal structure, right? In Egypt, they had rules, they had regulations, they had the laws of Egypt to live by. They're not in Egypt anymore, so now you got this whole nation, people group, that have no rules, because they used to just live under Egypt's rules. Now they have no rules. And that's why God had to give them 10 at least, right? So God gave them these 10 rules. And you have to think through, why did God give this one rule? Why did God give the rule, honor your father and mother so that you may live long in the land that the Lord your God will give you, right? Why is this an important command? And I think this specific command is given because God knew that it was important for the covenant relationship between God and this nation called Israel needed to last more than a generation, right? Because if you think about it, Moses came down from the mountain and had a group of people, right? But and they were going to go into the promised land, like right there, you go into the land the Lord God is giving you, right? So he comes down to the mountain, Moses tells them the 10 Commandments. How many people that were in that group went into the promised land? 2, right? 2, right? Joshua and Caleb, right? So you got 2 people that went into the promised land. Moses didn't even go to the promised land. So think about it. Everyone that came down and heard the 10 Commandments, now we're not even going to go into the promised land. So how would such a huge reason this one 10 Commandment? I believe that's a huge reason they had that one 10 Commandment. It's because the covenant relationship between God and His people needed to last more than one generation. It needed to last more than one generation. And he said, if it doesn't last more than one generation, you're not going to live long in this promised land. You're not going to go into Canaan. You're not going to live very long in this promised land. If you don't honor your father and mother. Why do you need to honor your father and mother? Because your father and mother are going to give you faith. Right? They're going to give you this covenant relationship between God and His people. So it's extremely important to honor your father and mother so you can live long in the land, so that you can have faith passed down from one generation to the next. And the thing that I want to let you know is that to honor your father and mother, if you're a student here and you're thinking through, why do I have to honor my father and mother? It's because your faith is at stake. Right? That's what was at stake when Moses came down from the mountain. Is this people group going to continue to have faith more than one generation? Because that generation, God experienced the miracles and the plagues in Egypt. That generation experienced the power of God on the mountain. That generation experienced faith. But if he didn't have a rule in the 10 Commandments that said honor your father and mother, honor the ones that experienced experienced that faith. Honor the ones that came out of Egypt. Honor the ones that saw Moses come down from the mountain with his face all shining. Right? They saw that. So honor your father and mother was all about faith. It was all about your faith. Not just the faith of you, but a faith of a generation was at stake. And I believe that applies to us today. I believe that we have to honor our father and mother. Why is that still applicable to us today? Because your parents' faith needs to get passed down from generation to generation. I honestly believe that your faith is at stake. So if you, I believe that whether or not you honor your parents has more to do with you and your relationship with God than it does about you and your relationship with your parents. Let me say that again. Honoring your parents, honoring your father and mother has more to do with you and your relationship with God than it does between you and your relationship with your parents. See, the question we have to ask as students is like, well, what if my parents' rules have nothing to do with faith? If my parents' rules about what time I have to get up in the morning or what time I have to go to bed at night, that has nothing to do with faith, right? That doesn't make sense. What if my parents' rules are dumb? Like, if my parents' rules are dumb, is that really going to impact my faith? Right? If I follow this dumb rule that my parents have, that I have to be in bed by 11 o'clock at night and I got to be up by, on a weekend, 6 if we're going to go to men's conference, right? We can go to No Regrets, right? Whatever time you had to get up this morning. If that's what it is, why do we have to? What does that have to do with honoring my father? What does that have to do with faith? And I think the truth of it really comes down to the fact that do you trust God? Do you trust God? Because God put you in your family. God gave you your parents, right? You didn't get to choose that, right? Your parents also didn't get to choose that, by the way. So they chose to have you, but they didn't know it was going to be you. They didn't know what that was going to look like, right? They chose to have you. But the truth of it is, God put your parents in authority over you, right? Romans chapter 13 talks about how no authority is given unless God gives that authority. So your parents have no authority unless God gives them that authority. So you have to ask yourself the question, do I trust God? And if you don't trust God, if you're going to go off and disobey your parents, you're going to go off and decide, I'm not going to honor my father and mother, I'm going to do whatever it is I want to do, then what you're really saying is, I don't really trust God with my life. I don't really trust God. My relationship with God is not one where I need to follow this one rule. And so what I want to tell you guys tonight is that your relationship with your honoring of your parent, whether or not you honor your parents, has to do with your faith. It has to do with, do you trust God in that rule? But it's a dumb rule. Well, it might be a dumb rule, but it might be a dumb rule, but God has allowed your parents to give you that dumb rule. You trust God in it. You trust God that there's something there. There's something more there. Now, before I move on to the next point that I want to make this one point. The point that I want to make next is, this is a slide that I put up. Honoring your father and mother has more to do with your relationship with God than it does about your conflict with your parents. I said that, right? And so the next thing I want to let you know that is relationships are more important than rules. Relationships are more important than rules. How do I know that relationships are more important than rules? Because relationships were more important than rules for God. Right? For God, relationships were more important than rules. That's why I know that today, relationship is more important than rules. Here's how I know that. Exodus 20, verse 2. This is the first verse. After this verse, Moses communicates the 10 Commandments that God gave him. Right? It's after this verse, right? God gave the 10 Commandments right after this. It's Exodus 20, verse 2. God says, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. So before God gives the Israelites a whole bunch of rules, he establishes a relationship with them. Before he gives them a whole bunch of rules, he establishes, I'm in your corner. I love you. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of rules that you have to follow. And there are going to be a lot of detailed rules about how you have to make a sacrifice to me and how you have to build a temple and a tabernacle and what that's going to look like. And I'm going to give you a whole lot of rules. You realize the covenant, the law, was more than 10 commandments. There's either the 10 commandments, but then there was a lot of other rules and regulations, right? So what God said was, I am the Lord your God. I brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. My relationship with you precedes these rules. My relationship is the God that delivered you from me. I'm in your corner. I love you. And if you don't like one of these rules, I'm sorry. But what's more important than if you don't like one of these rules is the fact that I'm establishing a relationship with you. I am establishing a relationship with you. And so my advice to you as a student is to never let rules be more important than a relationship. As a student, never let you winning some sort of argument ruin your relationship with your parents. Parents, my advice to you is never let you putting your foot down in an argument or establishing some sort of authority and a rule to ruin your relationship with your students. Now, what I'm not saying is, oh, don't enforce a rule because your kids will be mad about it. No, you do that, right? But I've seen so many students and parents decide, you know what? I'm going to let this rule ruin everything. I'm going to let this put a wedge between me and my parents. And now everything that happens after this moment, after this come to Jesus moment, right, is now ruined. There's now a conflict there that isn't about any of these things. It's now a relational conflict. And we let that happen. We let this stuff be more important than a relationship, right? And so for parents and students both, never let rules be more important than a relationship. All right, I want to turn the corner. I want to give you the parent verse. All right, we talked about students, honor your father and mother. This is about your faith. This is what this looks like. I want to give a scripture about that addresses parents. It's a perspective for parents, but it's also a perspective for students. So listen up. All right, anyone want to guess what verse we use? Man, we are so good at this. It says, start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. Okay? This for me defines a parent's job. This is like, what's your job as a parent? That. If you as a student are trying to figure out, what is my parents' whole job? What's my dad's job? That. I've got 3 kids. That's my job. Right there. Is to start my children off on the way they should go, and even when they're old, they will not turn from it. Now, here's the thing. A lot of times I've heard this, and you may disagree with me, but I'm going to say this. A lot of times I've heard this said that if you raise your kid a Christian, they will never turn away from faith. Right? So the truth of it is, if that was a promise in Scripture, it does say, and they will not. When they are old, they will not turn from it. A lot of people claim this as a promise in Scripture that if you raise your kids Christian, they will not turn away from their faith. But the truth of it is, we see this all over our world, right? We see this all over where a good Christian parent has a kid that turns from faith, right? We see this all over. I mean, you look at the Old Testament, right? You look at the history of kings in the Old Testament, right? There were good kings and there were bad kings. The good kings followed God. The bad kings didn't follow God. But it was also the kingdom was passed to the next generation. It was passed to the kids. Do you know how many good kings had kids that also did good? Were also good kings? None of them. Half of the good kings. If you look at the good kings of Israel and Judah, their kid that took over the throne, half of them rejected God's faith completely, and half of them did. Right? Half of them followed in their parents' footsteps, right, and their dad's footsteps, and were a good king. And so what I see this to this is not a promise about faith. I believe this is about our role as a parent. As a parent, we are supposed to teach kids how to act when they're not, or when they're independent, right? Teach kids how to act when they're young, so they know how to act when they're old, right? Teach kids how to, basically my paraphrase would be, teach kids how to go through life when they're not in your house anymore. Teach kids how to go through life when they're not in your house anymore. My job with my 3 kids is to, for the whole time that I have them in my home before they graduate high school, my job is to make sure that they know how to live in this world, not in my house. Right? That's the goal. That's my goal. Now, you've got 18 years to figure that out, right? I adopted my kids when they were 2 and 3 years old, so I've got like 15, 16 years to train up my kids, to teach them what happens when I leave home. What happens when that happens, right? And so I've got to be able to empower my kids to be able to make independent and individual decisions in life, right? I've got to help train them to figure out what's gonna be there. And so those decisions are all about relationships, career, technology, faith. All of those. Faith is one of those pieces, right? So I want to look at this conflict list. Okay, I want to look at this conflict list. Okay, and in each of these conflicts, how are these rules supposed to prepare you for when you're not in this home anymore? Okay, so this is more of a, we can do parents, students, whatever you want. So your grades in your school, how is this preparing you for when you're not in the home anymore?
To be responsible and making sure that you're doing whatever job you are doing to the best of your capability.
Exactly. You don't want to say, yes, you should go through life and barely get by. You know? So if your parents are calling you to what the expectations that you can provide in your grades, if they're saying you're an A student, you should live up to that A student. Why are they telling you that? Not because, now, parents, we have to have this reality that we have to make sure it's not, oh, so that I look okay. Because if I've got a C student, then I may not look good, right? No, we have to make sure it's not about that. But it is about being able to say, this life is not all about doing the bare minimum to just get by, right? If you do the bare minimum just get by in a job, you're not going to make it, right? So that, what else? So video games. You know, all the conflict about video games, how much time you have in video games, the type of video games. What are they trying to prepare you for within adulthood? What are they trying to prepare you for, Mario?
So that in life, when you actually like go out into the world, you don't expect like, okay, everything should be good. I can spend the rest of my day on the game. When in reality, as after you go out there, you probably won't have enough for a year's supply of ramen.
Right. There's a reality. You want to make sure that you are not spending all your time on video games, so you can't get a job. So you can't do all this other stuff, right? So there's time. What about the type of video games you do? Why would they care about that? What?
Like bad habits, like it's like a shooting game. You worry about like habits of maybe shooting home.
Yeah, sure. Awesome. What else? What others of these? Electronics. What do you think?
Social media.
Yeah. So what about social media? Why would social media, rules about social media help you as an adult? Help prepare you for adulthood? What do you think?
Well, if you're on social media, you have to be careful of what you send and also what you receive, making sure it's not gossip or fake news.
Well, yeah. So if you think about it, there's so much within social media. How many of you, when you look at your athletes and your celebrities, right? How much of them get in trouble? How much of them get in trouble because of social media mistakes? Lots of them, right? It's like all of them. It's like, oops, shouldn't have said that. Oops, shouldn't have posted that picture. Oops, shouldn't have had this or that. Well, yeah, it's because all these celebrities, they need to, well, one, fire their social media director, but also they've got to get to a point where their parents had to have taught them what pictures would be appropriate to post, what pictures they shouldn't post, what pictures they should even take or not take. Parents are here to say, oh no, there are rules about electronics. When you use them, how you use them, what you post, when you post. Right? There are rules about that. Why? Because it's going to impact you. The truth of this is, this next generation, will not get jobs because of what you're doing now on social media. Can you imagine that? Like, the fact of whether or not you get a job in the future is going to be dependent upon what silly, stupid comment you make on social media today. Weird. It's the weirdest thing we've never had. It's so unprecedented. Right?
right? Before, you go to a job interview and you give them your resume, that's all they used to have. All they used to have was what you wrote by your hand to give them. And they're like, yes, this person's a great employee. It's not, that's not how it is anymore, all right? So, anything else? Pull something out. I'm not going to go one by one, but pull something out.
Well, all of those really, what we're trying to teach our children is so they have a complete comprehension of reality and accountability. Your life on the video games, that's not how it is out in the real world. And reality is you need to divide your day so you're not into excess or intemperance of anything. Let it be gaming or alcohol or women or sporting events or even the Bible. If you read the Bible for 23 hours a day, you're lost. It's reality and accountability. You have to be accountable for your day. You lost it all playing video games. You didn't get the job. The type of it, you were doing Grand Theft Auto, and it's kind of funny about some of these parts of it. Social media, that one picture, your future, how many congressmen and senators are now losing their spots because of that one decision.
Yep. And it's unprecedented. That's not how it's been before this
You need to keep them in reality and understand that everything is accountability.
Just to echo off of what he was just saying, it's about balance.
Yeah. Yep.
There's not one thing up there that's absolutely like, there are some things that you shouldn't do, but everything in its perspective, as long as it's within its parameters, is okay. But when it gets out of balance, then you take away time from what is important.
Yep.
And then that goes away.
All right. Let me move on for a second, okay? Because I've got one more point I want to make. Okay. So we know that a parent's job is to prepare you for adulthood. Okay. But your parent actually has two jobs. Your parent has two jobs. Okay. Those two jobs are to prepare. We talked about that. And protect. Okay? So to prepare and protect, right? When you've got a 0 to 5 year old, okay? What do you need to do more of? Preparing or protecting? Protecting, right? You get to the point where it's like, okay, toddler, you're gonna have to learn how to walk past those stairs without falling down. Okay? You just gotta have to learn that, so you're gonna learn the hard way. No. You put a baby gate up. Why? Because you don't want them to crack their head on the wall or on the stairs as they go down. So the truth of it is that there's this balance, and that's where we went, Tim, right? This balance, right? So we're going to be doing more protecting than preparing, right? In this time, we're going to be doing protecting, right? Robots, that's the opposite, right? Protect. You're going to protect a whole bunch. You're really going to do not much preparing, right? As a parent, you're not doing much preparing when you got a toddler. You're protecting them. They can't do anything for themselves, right? You'd be like, yeah, you're going to have to figure out how to not, you're going to have to figure out how to not poop your pants no more. It's like, no, we're going to change your diaper. This is what it's like, right? You are fully protecting, right? Okay, let's look at middle school. Okay? In middle school, right? Are you doing more preparing or more protecting? Preparing?
50-50.
50-50. What do you think? 50-50? 50-50?
Protect us how some kids
50-50? Okay, so
because, well, they gotta learn.
okay. So middle school, you're here. Now, I will say I agree with you, except for certain this is probably right. Middle school, you're probably right, and I'll get to that in a second. High school, what are you going to be doing? Parents are going to be doing more of, right?
A whole lot of preparing.
Yeah, a whole lot of preparing. Are there still things to protect you from?
Yeah.
Yes, and that's what we have to understand. All right, so the truth of it is this: there are dangers within. If I just look at the internet in general, right? There are so many dangers that I would say, when it comes to technology, there are so many dangers that even in middle school, I would say with technology, the protect has got to be pretty high up, right? Yes, overall, you're gonna let them make mistakes to prepare and protect, but the truth of it is there are so many things that are so dangerous for high schoolers, right? So it doesn't mean that you do no protecting if you're in high school, that your parents have no job to protect you. Absolutely, right? Nothing good happens after midnight, right? So there is this reality. It's like, well, where are you? What are you doing? What does this look like? Okay, how do we do this? So I want to wrap up. I want to wrap up with this. Okay, how do you honor your parents, and how do you partner with them in this role of prepare and protect? Okay, here's what you need to do as a student. If you're upset with a parent's rule about any of these things, maybe you're upset about the fact that you can't sleep until 11 o'clock in the morning. Okay, if you're upset with that, if you're upset with the fact that you can't get a girlfriend, okay, that came out wrong. That came out wrong. If you're upset with the fact that your parents won't let you get a girlfriend, okay, you're upset about all of these things, okay. What's your job as a student? Okay, your job as a student is to prove to your parents that you don't need their protection. Your job as a student is to prove to your parents that you don't need that you are prepared. Okay? I'm going to tell you this right now. There are some parents who decide that when you're 16 you're allowed to date. But yet they don't prepare you or teach you how, or they don't talk to you about what the boundaries of dating might look like or what that relationship might look like. It's just, hey, go for it. When you're 16, you can do that, right? I will let you know that there are some 16-year-olds that should not be dating. I will also let you know that there are probably some 14-year-olds that probably could date. But here's the thing, because some people you have to prove to your parents that you've been prepared in it, and that you don't need that protection. Because at some point at 18, and that might be 18, and here's the pressure, guys, as students. Your parents have a hard job because they're gonna say goodbye to you, and there are gonna be things that they're gonna say, I don't think I prepared them on that. I don't think they're ready for that. I think they're gonna screw up their lives, right? There's a lot of pressure on parents for that. Okay? But the truth of it is, all of these things prove that you can get a job, prove that you can get a job and be responsible. Be responsible. You got a curfew? You got a curfew at 11 o'clock? Come home at 10:31, see what happens. Come home at 10:31, see what happens. What do you think, what kind of message do you think that's going to send to your parents? It's not manipulation, okay? You're not manipulating them. What kind of message do you think that's going to send to them? It's going to say, I can manage my own time schedule. And I can do it responsibly. If you're going to be late, call and say, hey, whoa, what about this? What about that? Okay? So as a student, this is your parents' job, but you're a partner in that job. You're a partner in that job. Because that's the thing that's hard as a kid, is like, well, my parents have authority. Yeah, but you can control some of this stuff. Just prove that you don't need protection or need preparation. Now, like I said, there's some things parents are just going to make that call. You need to be protected. And that's just what it is. All right? So I'm about a minute over. But that was where I wanted to go today. Any questions, thoughts? Things that came up that you were hoping? Things that you were hoping this was going to solve for you as a parent or a student that it didn't? Matt?
I understand that yet.
Ooh, all right, cool.
The greatest thing that I got as a young parent trying to connect with the kids is a good friend of mine in church came to me with a piece of paper, and he says, go to the library and check out the book that says how to be the best parent. Or specifically, the book says how to be a parent for that child. And when your child gets older, ask them to go to the library and check out that book says how to be the best child or student, especially child of me. It's not. It's you figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
And man, what if that child does benefit greatly by staying up till 11 o'clock every night?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, it's a battle. And then just the message I send to him and all of his freaky friends, I say, hey, you know what? Measure the intentions, not the outcome.
Yeah. Well, and that's the truth, because again, you hear this all the time. But my friends' parents don't have that rule, right? How many times have you said that? Well, there's the reality that it's like, okay, either your friend's parents are either not protecting or preparing in the way that they should, or your friend is different than you are and needs protection and preparation differently, right? Well, my brother didn't have that rule. Well, yeah, your brother Your brother didn't want to date. So yeah, he didn't have that rule because he didn't want to date, right? But you want to date, so we're going to have this rule, and we have to work through this, right? Your brother doesn't abuse technology like you do. So yeah, your brother doesn't need that rule because he's shown us that he doesn't need that rule because he's shown us he can manage that on his own, right?
That sucks about being the younger sibling is that everything that they screwed up on, they didn't need the rule, but now you need the rule. So
No, I would say it's personality though. I don't think it's age because it's the personality that will drive some of that stuff.
Well, like my older brother, we nicknamed him Cockroach because he always was in the basement playing video games, never upstairs. But I got self-control over that, but we still have that rule.
Yep. But yeah, so it may suck being the youngest, but who's gonna be prepared more?
But it's still learning things too. So
Oh, yeah.
as he's the oldest one in the house, and I find out that I didn't have a rule on subject A, and boy did that bite us in the butt.
Yeah.
Well, the younger one, now there's a rule on it, not because he created the situation or something, but I too learned from that.
Yeah.
I too learned that hindsight, I should have had that rule on him too then.
And that will get used to that. That's gonna happen all over the place. So get used to that. We're as parents, we're trying to figure that out. So, all right, let me pray for us, and we'll go. God, thank you so much for your word and your scripture. And God, this is not easy. As a kid, this is not easy. This is not easy to live under the authority of our parents when we want independence, but we're not sure what that looks like. So God, I pray, Lord, that you give patience, endurance, and life to these students. God, I pray for the parents as well. God, it is not easy. It is not easy to prepare and protect our kids through this time so that they can grow up with a personal relationship with you, but also protected from the dangers that they can know. They can trust their kids. And so, God, I pray, Lord, over everything else that was said today, God, I pray, Lord, that relationship would come